Disclaimer: this story contains mature themes intended for adult viewers. Viewer discretion is advised. I stood in front of the mirror, my reflection catching the soft afternoon light that slipped through the curtains. The navy blue dress clung perfectly, except for the zipper at the back that refused to move an inch higher. I sighed and called out, "Can you help me for a second?" He looked up from the couch, hesitant but curious. "You sure?" he asked, voice low. I nodded, pretending to sound casual. "Just the zipper." He walked over, the sound of his footsteps on the wooden floor echoing louder than my heartbeat. I gathered my hair to one side, exposing the bare skin of my back. His hand brushed against me as he reached for the zipper, a small touch, but it made every nerve in me come alive. The first tug of the zipper sent a shiver racing up my spine. His fingers, warm and unsure, grazed my skin again, slower this time, as if he was afraid to move too fast. I caught his eyes in the mirror. That look, steady, unblinking, full of something we both weren't supposed to feel, froze the air between us. "Almost there," he murmured, his breath close enough for me to feel it on the back of my neck. My pulse quickened. My fingers trembled slightly as I tried to keep still. He wasn't just helping me zip a dress, there was something unspoken in the space between us, something neither of us dared to name. The zipper reached the middle of my back, then stopped again. His hand lingered, just long enough for my knees to weaken. He whispered my name, quietly, almost like a question he wasn't sure he should ask. I turned my head slightly, close enough that our eyes met without a word spoken. For a moment, the world went still, the room, the air, even the sound of my own breathing. Just two people caught between what's right and what they suddenly can't resist. And then, the zipper slipped again. I gasped, not sure if it was the sudden movement or the way his fingers brushed my skin once more, sending another wave of electricity through me. He smiled faintly, but his eyes told a different story, one that was about to cross a line neither of us expected to approach. She wasn't supposed to feel this way, not about him. He'd been around for years, always there, always dependable. Maybe that was the problem. You never really notice someone until one quiet moment changes everything. It started weeks before the dress incident, little things that shouldn't have meant anything. The way he lingered after conversations, how his eyes followed her when he thought she wasn't looking, or the way he smiled differently now, softer, almost unsure. She was older, more composed, the kind of woman who knew how to hide what she felt. But lately, hiding had become harder. Her marriage was nothing more than polite silence, and the house, though beautiful, felt empty. Every day blurred into another, until he started coming around again. Helping with errands, fixing things, staying a little longer than necessary. He wasn't perfect. He was younger, still figuring things out, but there was something raw about him, something that made her remember what it felt like to be noticed. To be seen. The first time his hand brushed hers accidentally, she pulled back too quickly. But she didn't forget the warmth. Nor did he. After that, their conversations began to carry pauses, charged ones. A laugh would linger too long. A look would hold too much meaning. That day, when she asked him to zip her dress, it wasn't planned. Or maybe it was, somewhere deep down. Maybe she wanted to test something she couldn't name. Now, as she stood there, still feeling where his touch had been, she found herself trembling not from guilt, but from something far more dangerous, longing. He, on the other hand, had been fighting his own battle. Every time he was near her, his composure cracked. She had a quiet power over him, not because she tried, but because she didn't. She was graceful, mature, untouchable, and that made her even more irresistible. He often told himself it was just admiration, just respect. But the moment his fingers touched her skin, he knew it wasn't. There was no going back. The next morning, things felt heavier. He avoided her eyes, she avoided conversation. Yet every time they crossed paths, the silence between them deepened. It wasn't awkward, it was electric. A simple question, coffee? Carried a heartbeat. A glance at the breakfast table lingered a moment too long. Even the smallest gestures now felt intimate. She told herself she could stop this before it went too far. But her heart was already betraying her. Every time he looked at her like she was the only person in the room, it became harder to remember why she shouldn't feel what she did. Something had started, quiet, forbidden, and unstoppable. And both of them knew it was only a matter of time before pretending wouldn't be enough anymore. She caught herself watching him more than she should. Not intentionally, at least, that's what she told herself, but every movement he made drew her in. The way he laughed at someone else's joke, the way his fingers absent-mindedly brushed a countertop, even the careless tilt of his head, all of it made her pulse spike. And then there was the other side of it, the guilt. Every time she thought of her husband, a quiet pang reminded her she shouldn't feel this way. But the pang wasn't enough to stop her heart from responding when he entered the room. He noticed it, too. Every glance she gave him seemed to linger just a second longer than necessary. He caught himself imagining what it would be like if he could reach for her hand, brush her hair from her shoulder, or even just lean a little closer without consequence. The thought made his stomach twist and his breath catch, but he knew it was dangerous. Forbidden. A third presence that evening, a mutual friend visiting, added fuel to the tension. She laughed a little too loudly at something trivial, and he found himself staring at her, jealousy creeping in without warning. How dare someone else get her attention? How dare anyone make her smile when he wasn't the reason? She noticed his gaze, and her chest tightened. That small flicker of jealousy, that protective edge in his eyes, made her feel something she couldn't name. Desire? Fear? Both? Every time they were near each other, the air seemed charged. The brush of an arm, the accidental bump in passing, the shared glance across the room, all of it hinted at something neither wanted to admit aloud. The night deepened, the house quiet except for the faint clatter of dishes. She found herself in the kitchen, waiting for nothing, just drawn to the warmth of his presence. He lingered in the doorway, hesitant, their eyes locking with a mix of tension, longing, and unspoken words. Something was about to break. Something unplanned, something neither of them could fully control. And in that charged silence, both of them knew, when it happened, nothing would ever be the same. The rain tapped softly against the window, casting streaks of silver across the dimly lit room. She hadn't planned to be here, alone with him, yet somehow the night had conspired to make it inevitable. He stepped closer, just enough that the space between them felt electric. Every movement, every breath, was magnified in the quiet room. The soft hum of the heater, the faint rustle of fabric, the way their eyes met, it all built an invisible tension that neither could ignore. Her hand brushed against the edge of the table, and she realized it was trembling. Not from fear, not entirely, but from the intensity of being this close to him. She could feel the warmth radiating from his body, and the faint scent of his cologne made her pulse quicken. "I didn't expect you to stay," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Neither did I," he admitted, a small, hesitant smile playing at the corner of his lips. His hand hovered near hers, but neither moved, caught in a silent battle between restraint and desire. They leaned just a fraction closer, the charged air between them thick with possibility. Every glance, every small gesture, every subtle smile carried a promise neither dared to speak aloud. She felt the ache of longing in her chest, a dangerous, thrilling ache, and knew he felt it too. A sudden clap of thunder made her jump, and he reached instinctively, steadying her. Their hands brushed, fleeting but enough to send shivers down her spine. He looked down at her, his eyes searching hers as if asking a question neither had words for. "I shouldn't be here," she murmured, though every word felt like a challenge to fate itself. And yet, here we are, he replied, voice low, almost reverent. The distance between them was gone in everything but inches. The world outside, the rules they had lived by, all of it faded into the background. In this quiet, charged moment, anything felt possible and terrifying. And then, just as she thought she might lean in, a sudden knock at the door jolted them apart. Both froze, hearts hammering, the tension snapping like a drawn bow. Who was there? And what would happen if they stayed alone a second longer? The knock on the door hadn't been anyone she expected. She turned slowly, heart still racing, only to see her husband standing there, umbrella dripping, face etched with confusion and something sharper, suspicion. For a split second, time seemed to freeze. The younger man, standing just behind her, stiffened as well, tension radiating from every muscle. She opened her mouth, searching for words, but none came. The air was thick, electric, filled with all the things they had been holding back. I didn't know you'd be home, she managed, her voice trembling slightly. He looked from her to the man behind her, eyes narrowing. So, this is who you've been spending your afternoons with? His tone wasn't angry yet, but there was an unmistakable edge, a crack in the calm she had taken for granted. The younger man took a careful step back, raising his hands slightly, a silent gesture of respect and acknowledgement. Sir. I never meant, I'm not accusing anyone yet, her husband said, cutting him off, his gaze returning to her. I need to understand. The room was quiet except for the soft patter of rain and the faint hum of the heater. She felt the weight of all the suppressed emotions, longing, guilt, desire, and confusion, pressing down on her chest. She realized that what had felt thrilling and forbidden was now dangerously exposed, vulnerable in the harsh light of reality. I can't explain it all in a sentence, she said finally, voice low but steady. But it's not what it looks like. Not exactly. Her husband's brow furrowed. Not what it looks like. She took a deep breath, the words catching in her throat. There's something between us. I didn't plan it, and I didn't want it to happen. But it did. And it's not just a fling or a passing thing. I feel alive when I'm around him in a way I haven't in years. I don't know what that means yet. But I couldn't keep pretending it wasn't real. The younger man stayed quiet, giving her space, his expression unreadable but supportive. Her husband's eyes softened slightly, though the tension remained. So all this time, you've been hiding more than I knew. And yet, you were honest just now. For a moment, the room held its breath. The storm outside mirrored the storm inside, turbulent, intense, and unpredictable. In that moment, all the unspoken desires, suppressed frustrations, and forbidden attraction were laid bare. And then the unexpected twist, her husband didn't lash out or walk away. He simply said, we need to figure this together. The revelation hung in the air, shocking, raw, and unanticipated. No one had been betrayed in the way anyone expected. Instead, the truth created a fragile bridge between them, tense and delicate, but real. The question now was, how would they navigate the storm of desire, honesty, and risk that had suddenly become unavoidable? The room was silent now, heavy with the weight of truth. She sat on the edge of the sofa, fingers entwined, trying to steady her racing heart. The younger man remained near the doorway, hesitant, yet his presence was comforting in its own complicated way. And her husband, he stood a few feet away, eyes searching hers, as if trying to read the story written in her expression. I need to know why, he finally said, voice steady but edged with emotion. Why this happened? Why him? She swallowed hard, the lump in her throat making words feel impossible. It wasn't supposed to happen, she admitted, voice trembling slightly. I never planned to feel this way. But, sometimes life pushes you into moments you can't ignore. I felt alive. Seen. Something I haven't felt in years. Her husband's jaw tightened. And you've been hiding it? You've been pretending? I didn't know how to tell you. I was afraid of what it would mean. Afraid of losing everything, the life we've built, she confessed, tears welling in her eyes. But keeping it inside, that was tearing me apart too. The younger man stepped forward, careful not to cross an invisible line. Sir, I never wanted to come between you. I care about her, but I respect what you have together. I don't want this to destroy anyone. Her husband looked at him for a long moment, measuring the truth in his eyes. And then he exhaled slowly, running a hand through his hair. Maybe this is the reality we need to face. Not with anger, not with blame, but with honesty. The tension didn't disappear, but the edge of confrontation softened. She realized then that this was the moment they had to confront, not just the affair, but the feelings and choices that had led them here. I need time, he admitted quietly. Time to understand. Time to decide what we do next. She nodded, relief mixing with lingering fear. I'll wait. I just want us to be honest from now on. No more pretending. The younger man gave a small nod of understanding, then stepped back, giving the couple space. His expression was gentle, respectful, but his eyes lingered on her a moment longer, acknowledging the bond that had formed in secrecy, a bond that now had to adjust to reality. The room was quiet again, but it felt different, not lighter, not necessarily resolved, but real. For the first time in weeks, she felt clarity. The storm of forbidden desire had calmed just enough for reflection, but the spark remained, a subtle, unspoken promise of what could come next if hearts remained open. Outside, rain continued to fall, but inside, the tension had shifted, from accusation to reflection, from secrecy to the possibility of understanding. They had faced the consequences, and the future now hung on the choices they were willing to make together. The morning sunlight filtered gently through the curtains, casting a warm, golden glow across the living room. The tension that had gripped the house for days seemed to have softened into a quiet calm, a fragile but hopeful kind of peace. She sat on the sofa, wrapped in a soft blanket, watching him move around the kitchen preparing breakfast. There was a familiarity in the way he worked, an ease that had returned, like a storm had passed but left the air clear and fresh. He glanced over his shoulder, catching her eyes with a small, genuine smile. Coffee, he asked, holding out a steaming cup. She accepted it, their fingers brushing lightly, sending a comforting warmth up her arm. It was a touch that needed no words, a promise that they were moving forward, together. Her husband entered the kitchen, his expression softer now, less guarded. He leaned against the counter, watching them, and she saw a flicker of understanding in his eyes. I've had time to think, he said quietly. And I realize that we don't have to lose what we've built. We just need to be honest, patient, and open. She nodded, her heart swelling with relief. I don't want to hide anything anymore. I want us to feel everything, together. And I want us to be happy, even if it takes time to figure it all out. He took a careful step closer, and she met him halfway, their hands finding each other naturally. For the first time in weeks, there was no hesitation, no tension, just the warmth of connection, of mutual understanding. The air between them felt electric, but in a gentle, reassuring way. I missed this, he whispered, his thumb brushing over the back of her hand. Missed us. She smiled, leaning just enough to rest her forehead against his. So did I. In that quiet moment, they laughed softly, sharing a glance filled with gratitude, relief, and the promise of new beginnings. Outside, the rain had stopped, leaving the world sparkling with sunlight. Inside, they found their own light, a rekindled bond, strengthened by honesty, vulnerability, and the courage to face the truth. And as they sat together, sipping coffee and letting the morning stretch lazily around them. There was no need for words. Their hearts were aligned, their connection undeniable, and the future, uncertain as it might be, felt full of possibility. This was not an ending of heartbreak or secrecy. It was a beginning of trust, love, and the kind of intimacy that only comes when hearts are open and willing to forgive, understand, and embrace each other fully. They had weathered the storm and emerged stronger, and now, together, anything felt possible.